everybody, this is Gareth Cahoon Speaks back here with another video. I'd like you to hit the subscribe bar, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, or hit the notification bell to be notified when I post my next post. Or otherwise you can look me up at my website, which is www.garethcahoon.co.uk. Or if you'd like to support the ministry, you can do so through PayPal, garethcahoon3@gmail.com. This one is about Israel's Tel Gezer, 3,000-year-old Hebrew tablet chronicles agriculture and Canaanite history. Aerial view of the Tel Gezer archaeological site and the valley of Ayalon in the foothills of the Judean mountains is above my head. Located in the foothills of central Israel between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, Tel Gezer is famous for an Iron Age relic found at the site known as the Gezer calendar. Like a message in a bottle, the Gezer calendar transports us back in time, allowing us to read words written in Israel when King Solomon was on the throne. What does the message say? Tour guide Levi Simon shows correspondent Oriel Moran around the site, starting with the Gezer calendar, resembling something like a farmer's things to do list according to the transaction of Seth L. Sanders, an expert in Semitic languages. The ancient inscription says, a couple of months Yara Idul of gathering, a couple of months early sowing, a couple of months of late sowing, a month of making hay, a month of harvesting barley, a month of harvesting and finishing, a couple of months of vine pruning, a month of summer fruit. It is thought that given the crude form of the letters in ancient Hebrew text, perhaps it was a writing exercise for someone learning the name of the person who wrote it, which seems to have been written vertically is possible, Abi or Abaya. The list includes 12 months, and historians have made education estimations about which activities should be done in which month. At this time of year, according to the best guesses, we are in the couple of months of the late sowing. The former rains, known as the Yareh in Hebrew, soften up the ground, ready for the first round of planting. But in January or February, there was a second round of later planting in ancient Israel's agricultural year. This was called the Kesh, according to the Gezer calendar, facilitated by later rains, or Malkosh, which water the softer ground and bring a second harvest in the spring. The Gezer calendar dates back to 925 BC and is one of the oldest known Hebrew inscriptions. 3,000 years ago would have looked something like this, Simon explains. This is a tablet recognizing the different agricultural periods of the year in Paleo-Hebrew, Ancient Hebrew, which is closer to the Phoenician-style Canaanite Hebrew. Simon explains it's one of the oldest Hebrew texts that we have and one of the oldest texts in the world on tablet, and it was found where we're standing now in Tel Gezer. However, Tel Gezer is even more ancient than its calendar, with at least 1,000 years of history before Solomon got there. We're going to see how the Canaanites lived, Simon tells Moran. The largest Canaanite structure found anywhere in the world, says Simon, explaining the Canaanite civilization lived in the region even 4,500 years ago. A guard tower is still visible, which was used to protect the valuable water source. Original mud bricks from 4,000 years ago, and a Middle Bronze Age water channel that is around 3,700 years ago. The site also boasts the oldest gates in the world from the time of Solomon, roughly 3,000 years ago. The Canaanites were mentioned in the letters from rulers in Egypt, Anatolia, and Babylon, along with other places in the region during the Bronze Age, and of course appear frequently in the Bible. God tells the Israelites to put an end to them with their pagan practices, like child sacrifice. However, In the book of Joshua, we read that the Canaanites of Gezer remained living in the territory which was taken by the tribe of Ephraim. They did not drive out the Canaanites that were living in Gezer, so the Canaanites continued to live in the midst of Ephraim to this day and became forced labourers. Joshua 16:10. If we look just behind me over here, we can see the beautiful valley of Ajalon where multiple battles happened. Simon explains, saying that it is the valley in which they were fighting when God stopped the sun to help his people. At that time Joshua spoke to the Lord that day, and the Lord gave the Amorites over to the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, sun and stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance on their enemies. Joshua 10 verses 12 to 13a. Tel Gezer is a strategic point based in the middle of the international trade routes growing from Egypt to Mesopotamia. Simon explained, and we are at the foothills of the Judean mountains. He added, noting where Solomon's administrative centre would have been. There are also extensive remains from the Israelite period, and Simon takes Moran to what was once a classic Israelite house known as a four-roomed house. These columns would have had cedar wood. It would have been more a rich person's house, even though it doesn't seem massive. Most people didn't spend most of their lives inside the house, he explains, walking through the remains which have partially been reconstructed to give a better sense of what once stood there. The might and power of King Solomon can be seen before his triumphant gate. Simon marvels, expounding on the importance of gatekeeping and protection in the ancient world. With Gezer being an important city lying on the international trade route called the Via Maris, it was used to showcase Solomon's kingdom and was a place from which converts could be made and taxes collected. Pointing to the 9 huge stones placed upright, Simon explained that the monoliths were erected to signify a covenant between nations. This would be a binding covenant to make sure that they would never go to war and that they had one trade. He says, we are right now at the strategic and important crossroads between ancient and civilizations and trade routes. Now, thousands of years on, Israel is once again at something of a crossroads when nations are speaking of peace in the region after so much war and violence. Perhaps these great monuments to ancient agreements signify hope that peace is possible once more after the horrific events of October 7th and the Bondi Beach massacres, not to mention the Holocaust and the Israelites who had to flee from Russia, Spain and England throughout their generations. May we please have peace once and for all. Shalom, Maranatha, and Hallelujah.